Mailbag time here on the Cleveland Browns Report, answering questions you guys asked during our live show, which airs every single Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Jacob Kissner, if the Browns keep Flacco, what happens to DTR? Barry won't keep 3 QBs on the roster, or we put him to the practice squad, which he would get signed. So is keeping Flacco for one more year better than long-term outlook? Jacob, this is a very good question to ask, and I would say if Flacco was willing to come back to the Browns on a affordable backup quarterback contract, I would go with that. If you learned anything this year, not just for the Browns, the entire National Football League, if you stick your head in the sand and pretend like your starting quarterback is immune to getting injured, you are going to be like one of 2 NFL teams every single year that find themselves playing a backup QB. Half of the teams this year have had to turn to a backup quarterback. So even if you think DTR might be a better long-term answer, no. You cannot risk flying too close to the sun going, hopefully we don't even need Flacco next year. No. If you need a backup, you make sure you want to have a good one. Flacco has been an excellent backup quarterback and now starting quarterback for this team. I would take Joe Flacco, even if that means DTR is not the long-term backup. Cool guy called Zone. What do you think we should target for the most in the NFL draft this year? Good question, cool guy. I was actually thinking about this on my drive in because I was thinking, Browns second-round pick, maybe they trade it, but I don't feel like they will trade it because they got to start getting some young, talented, but most importantly, cheap contracts on their books. So if I'm thinking of holes they're going to have on their roster after this season, linebacker could be one. I think they'll bring Walker back, but he's also been injured for another season. Taki, maybe he walks, maybe he returns. Safety could be another, although... no, I think they're good at safety. They got Hickman, they got Bell. I think they like him as backups. Defensive line, if they lose Jordan Elliott and Maurice Hurst is injured, that could be a spot. You could see the Browns try and replace Darius Smith with a rookie selection. I feel like you're going to see some linebackers be targeted. And how about running back? If we're talking offense, running back has to be high up on the list. And if I could toss one more position in there, interior offensive line. Like Nick Harris, he's approaching the end of his rookie contract, but I don't think they want to roll it with Michael Dunn forever as your backup guard. So to really consolidate, I'll say running back, interior offensive line, and linebacker. Mike Dibble, next one up on the show. Who is favorite underrated Brown who has stepped up? Mine is Alex Wright. All right. My favorite underrated player this year who has stepped up. Alex Wright's been really good this year, coming off the edge and even working as like a 3 to 5 technique at times. I will say my favorite underrated Brown. I was a big fan of the Cedric Tillman draft pick, but as a rookie, you can't be underrated, I feel like, as a rookie. What about... Because Alex Wright's sort of my pick. I love Shelby Harris. I mean, he's a veteran, but Shelby Harris has been really good on the D-line this year. So maybe I'll go Shelby Harris as I feel like you can't be too good, otherwise you're not underrated. So give me Shelby Harris on the defensive line. Echo HD, what's going on? PD, any chance you believe Flacco is a double agent that waits till we play the Dirty Birds in the AFC Championship game to have a bad game when ultimately it was the plan all along? If you go back to the first or 2 videos after Flacco signed, I jokingly oh, I hope Flacco's not being a double agent. And I was like, I'm not really all that joking, though. The way Flacco addressed playing for the Browns when he signed with them after being a long-term Raven, I thought was very professional and very accurate, which was, guys, I haven't been on the Baltimore Ravens since 2018. That was a long time ago. And it was a long time ago. So I don't think Flacco, that far removed from Baltimore, would actually be a double agent for the Ravens. I think if Flacco was on the Ravens maybe last year or 2 years ago, different conversation. But he has played with 3 different teams, now 4 teams, since being on the Ravens, right? Broncos, Jets, Eagles, and now Browns. So he's pretty far removed from Baltimore. I don't think he's double agent. Now, before we get on to the rest of the questions on today's show, I do want to highlight our terrific sponsor, which is Prize Picks. The way Prize Picks works is you select 2 to 6 players. The more players you select, the more potential winnings for this daily fantasy made easy. Now, you pick more or less on their projected stats. So for week 17, these are my selections. I'm taking the more on Amari Cooper and his receiving yards at 55.5. I think this one kind of speaks for itself after what he did on Sunday against the Texans. I like the more on Jonathan Taylor's rushing yards. I think he's going to start heating up as the Colts are fighting for a playoff spot. I like the more on Kyler Murray's passing yards against an Eagles defense that does not look all that intimidating. And finally, I like the more on Matthew Stafford's passing yards against a Giants team that's playing frisky, but the Rams are looking like one of the hottest teams in the NFC. So let's say you like my selections. Well, you can turn maybe $10 into $250 when you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. That link, by the way, is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Lil Beam, next one up on the show. How does a one-year, $5 million contract for Joe Flacco next year sound? Sounds great to me. Sounds great to Andrew Berry. Sounds awful to Joe Flacco. Like the way Flacco has played this year, he is going to want, he's going to deserve more than just a one-year, $5 million contract, right? Baker Mayfield got more than 1 year, $5 million when he went to the Bucs this past offseason. So Flacco's probably going to be looking for like a 2-year, $35, maybe $40 million contract. I know it's a big number, maybe not that big, but it's going to be more than $5 million. I think Flacco's going to get more than $10 million a season. And I'm not quite sure which team will be looking for Flacco's services, but I'm sure Flacco will want to go somewhere where he can truly compete to start. And he and the Browns know that Deshaun Watson is this team's starting quarterback in 2024. Jeremy Rebel. Should they give Tillman and Moore the first and second read to get them ready for the playoffs? Maybe like week 18. Can we actually pull up the playoff picture for a moment? Because this thought just kind of popped in my head, and I don't want to get ahead of myself here. But look at the AFC playoff picture. Let's say the Browns win against the Jets, okay? They would improve to 11-5. If the Bills lose, no team could catch the Browns at the number 5 seed. And let's say the Ravens win as well, and so the Browns can't even catch the Ravens or get the 1 seed. The Browns could be stuck at 11-5, knowing we can't go up and we can't go down if Buffalo loses in week 16 or week 17 against the Patriots. So if Buffalo wins, the Browns will have some pressure turned up on them to try and fend off the Bills for the number 5 seed. But I think the Browns could find themselves in a spot where they go, we might not need to play our starters in week 18, which could open up Moore and Tillman to get more reps at that number 1 and number 2 spot for the playoffs so that they are more acclimated for playoff football. Icy Prods, next one up on the show. If Flacco wins the Super Bowl this year, will the Browns start Flacco for the whole next year's season? Let's win the Super Bowl first. Like, if Flacco wins the Super Bowl this year, that's obviously going to open up Pandora's box for what to expect this offseason. And this will be the greatest problem in the history of the Cleveland Browns, which is we won the Super Bowl and we have 2 good quarterbacks and we don't know which one to start. Sign me up for having a problem like that. I would love to have a problem where the Browns start, we won the Super Bowl and now we don't know who to start our quarterback. Yeah, just red, blue, pink. I'll sign whatever ink color you want me to sign in if that's the biggest problem the Browns face in the offseason. Do I think the Browns are going to run into that problem? Let's cross that bridge when we get there. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's win the Super Bowl first and then discuss who to start next season. But if we're playing this hypothetical, Icy Prods, if the Browns do win the Super Bowl this year, I'd have to envision Joe Flacco would return in 2024. Adrian Allen. Will the Browns score a defensive touchdown this week? The Browns need to draft a dominant middle linebacker. Kind of going back to our prior question about draft targets and draft needs for the Browns. They've got JOK, but they need to find someone, and you're right, Adrian, who can really command the middle of the defense like Anthony Walker does, but just a lack of availability from A. Walker, right? Last year, unfortunately, had his season cut short. This year had his season cut short, missed some time. Not quite sure when we're going to get him back, when the Browns might get him back with that knee injury. So will the Browns score a defensive touchdown this week? Sure. How about Denzel Ward pick 6 against Trevor Siemian on the first play of the game? Who's in? I'm in. So with that being said, predict the score for me as we are getting closer and closer to kickoff. Browns versus Jets down below in the comment section. Who you got and by how much down below. Some super chats to hit here before we sign on off. Chef Ruben, do you think Riley Patterson could be a diamond in the rough? I hope we don't even need to see much of Riley Patterson. I hope we see Riley Patterson 8 times in 2 weeks and 8 extra points, 4 touchdowns in each game. I hope the Browns do not put themselves in a position where they need Riley Patterson to make a clutch 50-plus yarder. Do I think he could be a diamond in the rough? I think most people wrote off Dustin Hopkins, and we saw how that went. So with Bubba Ventrone, I don't know how much time he's really going to have to work on Patterson, but he's probably going to get him in a good spot to be at least better than what he was in Detroit this year. Jacob Kissner, $2 just because I love the show and the community. Let's go Browns. Jacob Kissner, you're the man, dude. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for your support. We love you, and let's go Brownies. Dr. Crew, it's a good day when the Browns report is on. Indeed it is, Dr. Crew. Indeed it is. Matthew, next one up. Need Flacco and Cooper repeat performances to win my fantasy football championship. Who's saying they're slowing down? Like, the Jets' defense this year has not been as good as I think people think it has been just because of how good they were last year. Which kind of goes to show, like, offenses can stay consistent over the years, but defenses can fluctuate. So, I think Cooper and Flacco are probably primed for another big game at home on Thursday. Browns fan for life. Who is your ideal matchup in the playoffs? I'm going to go with the Texans. I think the Jags have the highest ceiling. I think the Colts can play the Browns really tough with their physicality. And we saw what happened in Houston. Now, no C.J. Stroud, but tell me, C.J. Stroud starts that game. Are the Texans winning that game? No. The Browns were the best team in that zip code. So I will take the Texans if I'm picking between the 3 AFC South teams to face in the first round of the playoffs. Lil Bean, what's going on, dude? I got Elijah Moore scoring 2 touchdowns on Thursday. He's only got 1 this season. I sure hope Elijah Moore kind of breaks out of his shell a little bit because I feel like Elijah Moore has been a little bit, to say, of a disappointment this season. He has still made some nice plays, but I'm sure everyone, myself included, was expecting more out of Elijah Moore. So 2 touchdowns would be a very nice boost against his former team and maybe have him build some momentum going into the final game of the season and going into the playoffs. That's going to do it for us on this edition of the Cleveland Browns Report. Thank you so much for tuning into our mailbag. If you enjoyed the content, subscribe, and that way you don't miss our live shows so you can ask questions on future mailbags every single Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern.